So, hello, dear colleagues, speakers, listeners, and experts. Thank you for having me today. It's a big honor and pleasure to be here. My name is Sandis Caune. I am a second year student at University of Latvia in a professional bachelor study program teacher. And today I'm going to talk about a topic evaluating democracy, culture, approaches, and sustainability. About topicality, a fundamental need for public education campaigns on democracy's issues, and particularly in the teaching of the democratic values at school, is crucial as Latvia is holding the democracy's flag. Constructivists state that teaching and learning is a process that requires the application of theoretical knowledge in practice. Moreover, it has been confirmed that the environment holds a strong role and influence on the learning process and outcomes. Therefore, democracy cannot be taught only using the theory. The learning process should be democratic and based on democratic values itself. The main target of this research was to find out the indicators of the culture of the democracy. And while conducting research, the democracy self-assessment tool was used to measure democracy's culture at the Ventspils Secondary School number 4, which is the school that I work for. And at the end, interpret obtained results in the context of the average results in Latvian schools. The factors mentioned and topicality determine the research question. To what extent is the democracy's culture implemented and maintained in the public education institution? And the research question is important because the results and conclusions at the end could give us an information about school strengths and weaknesses and fields that needs improvements. I would say that this research has two meanings. One is the scientific meaning, and the second one is the personal meaning. There has been some other studies about democracy in education and education institutes. Turkish researchers Altun and Sunley studied about the significance of democratic environment at schools. Indian researcher D.T. Suba offered a perspective of democratic values and approach in teaching. Dr. Munira Al-Sherman wrote about democratic education and administration process, but already in 2002, Furman and Starrett researched leadership for democratic community in schools. You see, one democracy, but four different sides and different topics. I think it shows us that democracy isn't as easy as we may think. The first thoughts on democracy come from ancient Greece, but at that point, democracy was slightly different than nowadays. Democracy has been evolving century by century, but etymology of the name democracy hasn't changed. Demos, which means people, and kratos, which means rule. So rule by the people. Bureau of European Union in Latvia has defined values that features democracy: equality, will, individuality, freedom, respect, choice, legality, life, participation, human rights, rule of law, and civic society as a result. These features should be realized by every social group of people, at the workplace, at the school, at the class, that's no matter where. These values are also included in the self-assessment tool to find out democracy's culture in public education institution. As I said before, while conducting the research, democracy self-assessment tool was used, and it's called Try On Democracy for Your Education Institution. Tool was created this year by European Movement in Latvia. Tool is in Latvian and available publicly and free for use. Everyone, no matter their role at school, can use the tool to evaluate democracy's culture in their education institution, and can do that fully anonymous because the results aren't collected generally. This self-assessment tool is structured in three main categories: school administration, daily life in school, and citizenship and democracy. Each category has multiple choice questions. The first category, school administration, have 9 questions about development planning, process of education, involvement of teachers, parents, students, etc. The second category, daily life in school, includes 11 questions about events at school, communication, environment, cooperation with NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and others. And citizenship and democracy have 3 questions about democracy in educational process. Each question is numbered and located on the left side of the screen. And on the right side, there are 5 criteria or options, where 4 of them are evaluated on a scale from 4 to 1 points, where 4 is the strongest criteria and 1 is the weakest criteria, and 5th criteria without points. That's an option named hard to evaluate, and if respondent can't evaluate situation in defined question. Respondent is obligated to choose one option in each question, and in addition, there is an additional field for more ideas and comments on the questions. That gives an opportunity for example, school administration to organize and get information from teachers or student council or teacher council at the same place where they have done evaluation. So there is no need to create other documents or other survey tools. About the target group, I got the results which could be divided in 3 groups. 2 of them are my target groups. Firstly, 7 respondents from Schools Council of Social and Civic Educations. They completed the tool individually, and I summarized results together and took the average results. Secondly, 12 student council members. They did the tool together via Zoom conference call because it was impossible to arrange live meeting with them. So these 2 are the main target groups of this research, but our target was to look at these results in the context of results of Latvian teachers. So there is a need for a third group, which is 28 teachers of Latvia who participated in the e-course named Demokratia or Democracy. Due to the communication difficulties, it was not possible to take photos of target groups using the tool, but on the left side you see me using the self-assessment tool because I'm a teacher at this school, and on the right side there is a photo from student council meeting. About the process. Process of this research wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. On the positive side, there is a personal interest in the research process and topic, supportive colleagues who agreed on participation in the research and did the tool, and of course, easy and understandable self-assessment tool. On the negative side, there is 4 factors that influenced the process and I would say made the research process slower. Firstly, time planning. I wanted to do the tool together with colleagues, but it was hard to agree on one time when to do that. Secondly, communication with student council was very hard. Without patience and repeated calls, it would not be possible. Data processing was the third challenge because it took a long time. And finally, language barrier. It didn't affect the data collection process, but creating this presentation and speaking right now is quite a challenge for me after 2 years of COVID-19 when there wasn't opportunities to use the language. And next challenge will be discussion after this performance. Here you see the results of the survey. The results are divided in the same 3 categories: school administration, daily life, and citizenship and democracy. And because these are the main aspects of this research, you see the results of already mentioned 3 groups: teachers, student council, and teachers of Latvia. But there is also an addition, school's average result, because we want to know the full view on democracy at school. About the correlation. The lowest result in all groups of respondents was in the category called daily life. The teacher council had 56%, student council 81%, and Latvia's average was 62%. And the school average was 69%. The best result in all groups was in the category citizenship and democracy, where the teacher council had 75% results, student council 91, school average was 83%, and Latvia in this category had only one result over 70% average, it was 71%. Evaluation of schools' daily life by teacher council was lower than the average result of Latvia. It was 56% against 62%. Which leaves an open question about this aspect in the school. And finally, schools' average results are higher than Latvia's average results. About conclusions. So firstly, about the strengths. School strengths are availability of information and transparency of processes made by administration, the process of developing schools' planning documents, and I am an example of this process because recently I participated in this process as a representative of teacher council, and educating students about democracy. For example, an European Parliament election simulation in 2019. About school weaknesses based on results. There are decision-making that could mean that there is not a fully understanding about decisions, about decision-making process that should be created differently. Accessibility of environment, because school is not prepared for the persons with disabilities, and educating parents about democracy and civic participation. So there is a need to educate parents about democracy too, not just teachers or students. Secondly, conclusions about research. Results shows us that student council members are more positive about democracy in school than educators, and this could be due to students' lesser experience in comparison with teachers who are in these processes almost 24/7. There is a room for improvement on schools' everyday life, and my thought is that I could offer this tool for schools administration to get more information about schools' democratic environment. And finally, Ventspils Secondary School number 4 is more democratic than average school in Latvia, based on the average rate. But it's not a full view, because Latvia's average rate is based on only teacher answers, without the thoughts of student councils. So there should be a continuing process to this research to estimate these results and get the biggest perspective, larger perspective to the democracy's culture in the schools. So yes, this is the bibliography I used. There is the studies that I showed you before, and of course there is an articles in the Britannica Encyclopedia and National Encyclopedia of Latvia by Ivars Iebs and other literature. So yes, thank you for attention. It was a big pleasure for me to participate in this conference, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Sandis. This was a very interesting presentation, and thank you first of all for bringing up such an interesting and important topic as how to evaluate, how to assess democracy. And yes, thank you. Also, what I personally enjoyed was your data analysis, the conclusions you made, the causes and outcomes that you have evaluated. So great job. Thank you for that. And to open the discussion part, I kindly invite Mary Junk to start the feedback and to start asking questions. It's up to you. Floor is yours.
So first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for Sandis. You did a perfect job, and all your data show us clarify how we see in Latvia, because I come from China. This resource, this old state is very important for me in future to do some research work. And I just want to say something more because you have a lot of patience in your research. That do you have some more objective, how to say, comparing with your school to a local other school? For example, your school you said is in the how to say up to the average, but did you see other Latvian school, but in different conditions? Did you compare with them? What is the condition of that? I'm very interested for that.
Yeah, I agree that it would be very interesting topic to research. And one of the problems right now was that, for example, for collecting the results from the Latvian teachers, there was only 28 teachers. That's because the teachers are quite the free thinkers, I would say, because um, they needed to give us like the photo of the results of all the tool, but there was some teachers who just took a photo of one category or two categories, not the result together. So it made lower results, like there is no full view of this. So I think that very good continuing to this research would be try to research to get the results to evaluate democracy in, for example, in my city for all schools, and then maybe more larger, think larger, and get the more results from the Latvian schools. Yes.
Super. So no question from me. Fantastic.
Thank you, Ms. Jung, for your questions, and thank you, Sandis. Yeah, my apologies, Sandis, for your answers. And I see that Ms. Fleur have a question for you. Ms. Fleur, please. Yeah.
Sandis, thank you very much. This was so interesting, and I love that you're talking about living democracy, not just teaching or learning about it. And you know, it's interesting also coming from my perspective. I've always been in international schools, pretty much, where the ideal of democracy is a big one, but it's not actually necessarily lived. I wonder how you feel about the difficulty in collecting data, considering both students and teachers might see it as a threat, potentially, to give truthful answers to the state of the democratic involvement in their particular work environment or study environment.
Yes, that was a little problem right now, because I needed to tell my colleagues that the research, that the data is collected for research purposes, and I won't say any names, I won't ask them to more data. I just need the view together. Like, I collected the data and I took the average, and that's the main thing. I think every teacher in Latvia could think that, oh, they will collect our data and they will like make some assumptions about us, about what we think. But I did well in this this field right now, and we got the results, and everyone was very friendly and accepted this invite to participate. And as I said, the hardest part was to communicate with the Students' Council, because it was very hard to communicate with them. They were always like doing their things, and I cannot do the self-assessment tool together with them, what I thought I could do, and that's the main problem. And I think another problem is that I said before, that students have more positive thoughts, and I would say, on democracy at school. And I would not just say the more positive, I would say they have the lesser experience, because the teachers, they know how the administration are making their decisions, how they are communicating with between the communication between the Teachers' Council and administration, but students don't know that. So there is need, I think there is a need to educate the students also on the topic how the school works, how the school system works, how the administration are making the processes, how they are communicating with the Student Council, with the Teacher Council, with the parents, and that could just increase the democracy level at school.
Can I just ask, is this self-assessment tool available in English?
It's a question for Edgar's.
At the moment the self-assessment tool is not available in English, probably in the future, but in context of Exeter International School, as far as I know, there have been 4 teachers, Latvian speakers, that have conducted this tool, used this tool to assess level of democracy. So probably some professional developments in this way by using the forces of these teachers. But may I ask a short question? I know, Mr. Germans, that you are to say stop and let's move on, but Sandis, a question for you about the research design. I'm going to give another one question for you in the chat later, but the question is about research design. Could you please guide us through the process, how you created particular design for your research that you presented today?
Yeah, so the first thing was invite from the Edgar's because I'm a student of his, and he invited me to participate here, and we talked about the topic, what could I research, and I was already researching the student council, motivation for students to participate in students council, and we made this about democracy and made this research. So the next step was to use the tool myself. I needed to see through the tool, what questions are there, and analyze it. Then I provided my colleagues with the tool, collected data. Then the student council. Besides that, I collected data and summarized and wrote in the Excel program all data from Latvian teachers, and then already creating a presentation, thinking about the categories to talk about the visual materials to use, and at the end the conclusions, and of course this performance.
Thank you. If may I, as your university teacher, not the school teacher, to conclude, so the first was the empiric field study when you used the tool yourself, then you continued with the focus group field study. Those were the teachers and as well students. Then the next step is data analysis using Excel, and last but not the least is categorization and as well representation of data. Am I right?